Awesome. Well, hi, everyone. My name is Rachel Lund, and I'm the owner of Self Space and a therapist. And I am so excited to introduce today our therapist, Amisha Gandhi. We've been talking about this for a while, about her getting to come and do a training like this, really getting to share particular perspectives around working with folks in the South Asian community, and give us a lot of context here. So I'm so excited for this training, Amisha. Thank you. And the
Yes.
floor is yours.
Oh, thank you so much. I am so excited to be here. And thanks again, Rachel, for allowing me to share this space. I know we have a lot of South Asian folks around the Seattle area, and we don't have a lot of mental health therapists that are of Asian descent. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to just have like a conversation. Honestly, it's just a conversation on South Asian mental health. And that's why I had the title Sipping Chai, Shifting Minds. I hope everybody has their chai or coffee or whatever.
I'm with
Um,
you.
Nice. Cheers.
Cheers.
While you're viewing this presentation, I would like you to kind of think of any sort of clients that you may have had before or you have currently of like any sort of like cultural dynamics or something that you've been unsure about and not understanding like, how to go about things, just because you may not have the knowledge or you're curious or you don't know how to ask. So just kind of keep in mind throughout this presentation or this training conversation, whatever we want to call it, just so that I can answer any questions that you might have at the end of the conversation.
Lovely.
So a little bit of the agenda, and you even saw in the email. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the cultural awareness and the sensitivity, understanding the role of the family, stigmas around mental health, communication style, client-centered approach, and cultural concepts. So these are kind of like the CEUs that we even talked about and whatnot. So in your email. So once again, my name is Amisha Gandhi. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist associate. A little bit about me and my career path to becoming an LMFTA. I wasn't always a therapist. My first career was in corporate America. I got my undergrad in business marketing and business management. And I worked at the Coca-Cola company for almost 9 years. And it was very different. Um, I have been in therapy. I was in therapy in college for a little bit, didn't really understand it. But continuously, I started therapy back in 2012, and I learned so much about myself and the importance. And this therapist has been with me every step of the way. And in 2018, I got a divorce, and just the difference of therapy and in that moment, like because I had such a good relationship with my therapist, it was like okay, like my therapist knew. But after that period, I really wanted to, see like how can I help people? How can I help South Asian women going through that same thing? And so that is when in 2020, like everyone else has an epiphany, I had a career change. And while I was working in corporate America, I started going to online school to get my marriage and family therapist degree. So one of the things that I really get asked when working with South Asian clients is like having the cultural awareness and sensitivity. Um, so the reason why I have this map up because actually India is very, very large. And It's very surprising that back in 2023, the population actually grew to 1.4 billion people, and is much more than China. And it just like, when we talk about South Asian clients, we are not just talking about India, even though majority of my clients are from India, but we're also talking about the surrounding areas, such as like Pakistan, we're talking about Sri Lanka, we're talking about, Bangladesh, but all of these have like similarities to the South Asian community. And so it's really important how all of this differs from the Western culture of like religious, linguistic, and socioeconomic backgrounds. And then when I say like, when people talk about like migrating, so not everyone migrated from South Asia to the United States. A lot of people, like my family, my parents migrated to Canada in the early 70s. There's a lot of people who migrated to Europe, Africa, um, uh, Fiji, like all these different places. And then they've come to the US. And now, well, as of 2020, the US Census population on South Asian is about 5.8 million. So I'm anticipating probably a little bit more like 6.1 or a little bit, around that 6 million uh, population range. So, diversity within the community. So, South Asians, we're not a monolithic group, but we identify with various languages and religious beliefs. For instance, I'm Gujarati but my background is Hindu. My husband, he's Punjabi, but his background is Sikh. And so just because we're in India or surrounding, it doesn't mean that we're all going to fall into the same bucket of religious identities. And so, but the main ones are Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, Buddhist, and Christianity. And same with languages. Even though the official language are Hindi and English, there's many dialects from that. So I speak Gujarati, my husband speaks Punjabi, South India speaks Tamil or Urdu, the like speaks Urdu as well, or Bengali. So there's hundreds more. And even within that, there's such like dialects within that. So it's very diverse to say the least. So cultural traditions are it's very ingrained in us, um, because from our elders, and not even just my grandparents, it's like the great great parents and all of that stuff. It's the family hierarchy, and it's really important. Um, the traditions that they pass down. And a lot of the traditions, it's like important to have is kind of to build that, kind of to like have the future generation still know and learn about the South Asian community. And so recognizing two kinds of um uh two kinds of what is it? The holidays that happen. It's one is called Diwali, and that is celebrated in the fall time. And Diwali is the festival of lights. And it celebrates the goddess Lakshmi, which she brings prosperity. So it's good over evil. And then in the springtime, we have Holi, and it's the festival of colors. Again, it celebrates good over evil, but it celebrates the internal and the love between the deities of Radha and Krishna. So not everyone celebrates Holi and Diwali in the same aspect, but um, it's also it's still celebrated and everything is basically shut down. So understanding the role of the family. And the reason why I chose this family, like this picture, is this is like typically how it is set up in India or in South Asia or even here where you have the husband and wife with their kid, and usually these are the parents of the husband. And usually what happens is that wherever there's a son, it doesn't matter which ranking. Like if there's the only son, then the parents will live with the son. But if there's like three sons or multiple, then it's usually the eldest son that they'll uh, they'll stay with. But many South Asians, they uh, prefer culture, like emphasizes on family interdependence over individualism. Here in the Western culture, it's all about like individuation. But over there, it's like, what is a society kind of thing? What like our family legacy? How is that being built and being shared to the community? And even discussions about marriage and career and even personal choices is not really an individual uh, decision. It's much more of a like a family decision. I mean, even to the point where periods and puberty are not even talked about, sex education is not even talked about. Um, like when you ask like if you were to ask boundaries, what does that mean? It's the expectations of no questions, right? Like high like in the olden age, basically, you don't really ask questions. You just go with the flow, or you just go with whatever your parents have told you or your grandparents have told you. But like keeping it within the family, so the family name does not get ruined. Even for marriage, it's like, or career, now it's shifting in the last 20 years, I would say, that it's very focused on the educational like throughout life. And until you're in your mid 20s, that's when you even date or have a marriage or anything of that nature, which is kind of like now women are like, well, you wanted me to go to career my whole life. Now you want me to get married? That doesn't make any sense. So, so that brings us to the stigma of mental health. Um, Basically, so again, it's a sign of weakness. It's the last resort. U.S. South Asians often express greater stigma around mental health illness than any other group. And it's because the confidentiality piece. Like I even had a client come in saying that yesterday, an adult person, they were like, will anybody find out that I'm here? Will anybody and giving that confidentiality, of course, that statement if there's no harm, but also that nobody can have access to your notes. I cannot even confirm or deny if somebody comes in. So it's very different than what it would be in India, where everyone knows that you went to the doctor, or everyone knows if you go to like, I'm from Gujarat, so if people go to Mumbai for any sort of medical issues, then it's a big deal. So it really needs to stay kind of inside. And the thing is that 1 in 5 US South Asians report experiencing a mood or anxiety disorder in their lifetime. And this is actually very common for US South Asian women because the women are expected to work, take care of the house, take care of the in-laws, take care of the kids, take care of like the religious activities or any other activities than what the man is supposed to do. And the women are not supposed to complain about it. But I mean, now it's shifting where a lot more men do realize that women can't do it all. So so it is changing in that aspect. Rachel, did you have a
Yeah, can
question?
I ask you a question about this?
Yeah.
So, this idea of it's nerve-wracking to come in to therapy because what if my family finds out and there's this stigma that it would mean that there's you said a sign of weakness. Can you explain a little more, like what would that mean to the family? If one member of the family needed mental health support, is there a story there about what that then means about the whole family? Is that specific?
Yeah. So basically what it is it's a couple things. It's they don't want the society to know that what is going on in their family. And so if adult daughter or child teenager is going to see this person, what are they going to share? And then what is that person going to share about us in the community? That's one thing. Another thing is that, well, how are they supposed to know? They're not in this family. How are they like, they're just, you know, people who they're not yeah, they're not doctors. They're not like there's just, how are they supposed to know our family dynamics, and who are they to judge us about our family dynamics? So it's that's where it's like, what is the society going to think? And it shows a sign of weakness because in the society, you want your family to be this pristine family that nothing is wrong, everything is okay. And, you don't want to show any sort of weakness in that aspect. Does that answer your question? Okay, awesome. All right. So this goes into your question of reluctance to seek help. Even though if clients are like, of course, they're here in the US or in Seattle, um, it is a fear of shame. It is this you know, like the judgment from the family and the community, and it could be, it's not your emotions and empathy and compassion, it's not supposed to be it's not supposed to come out. It's supposed to be suppressed. And so that is why there's a lot of mental health issues, even with the most prestigious people that have such a high position. They are super smart. I work with a lot of tech people, a lot of different types of people, and they're just like, what is this feeling? Why am I having this anxiety inside of me? I keep on suppressing it, but it keeps on coming out. Well, and so then I'm like, well, it's supposed to come out. You're not supposed to suppress it. And like either you're 15 or 45 or 72, it doesn't matter. It's going to come out and it's going to show in different ways. And empathy and compassion and emotion is such a foreign concept to them when it seems just so easy to be like, well, yeah, it's emotion and empathy, right? But it's very strict. The dynamic of Indian families it's very strict. We like the males usually don't have a personality. It's just very like to the point, while mothers are like women are tend to have that kind of side, but then they're also labeled too sensitive too. So it really it's like it's a double whammy if you think about it. Um, because then there's also that label and judgment as well. So what happens when the client finally wants to come, right? They want to come to therapy. What Marcus and I came up with was these are the newbies of therapy. It's their first ever time of coming to therapy, and they don't know. They don't know what to talk about because there's so much that has happened. So you kind of have to meet them where they're at. Again, I had like a lot of my clients when they come in, they have such a pressing issue. I'm not going to go back to, well, okay, well, let me know about your family root. Maybe that will come up later, but honestly, meeting where the client is at, and that's why it's a very client-centered approach where, if they're feeling comfortable and they want to build that trust with you, they want to know that you're understanding them in their way and like not judging their background because sometimes they do live with in-laws or in-laws come stay with them. And, instead of staying in an Airbnb or a hotel, it's just not that westernized. So it's that division. And so a lot of clients want, you to incorporate like a spiritual well-being or like, mental, physical, kind of like instead of diving into the interventions right away, it's much more, how is this holistic? How can we use some mindfulness? How can we use, it's a flexibility in approach. I usually use like experiential and collaborative as my interventions because it allows them, it's very client centered. I'm not going to tell them how it's like, even though I'm Indian. I'll ask to make sure, but every person has a different story. Um, but it's really slowing it down with the clients, right? It's asking about family life afterwards or the expectations, because of course there's always a root to this, like to their anxiety or their feelings that they're having, like where did this come from? And a lot of like a few therapists have asked me, like, a lot of my like Indian clients that come in, they are like, they have a focus, the ones that are very intelligent, and they're like, all right, I want to come into therapy. I mean, in 6 sessions or 4 sessions, everything's going to be fixed. And, just give me the tools, right? And because they've always been so like, even in school, it's driven by grades. There's an ending point, right? And this is not an ending point. This is just like 4 to 6 sessions. You're just getting started, let alone, um, wanting to finish. And so it's kind of like, of course, it's a lot of psychoeducation. It's a lot of psychoeducation that, hey, you can go to the store and buy some self-help books and get some tools from there, but it's not going to teach you how to understand and process all of these things, because they are very homework oriented too. They're like, okay, I want to fix this. So yeah, so slowing it down is what I recommend with these clientele. And so, because of all of this stuff, and even my own upbringing, I wanted to, even though I'm in like Kirkland, seeing South Asian clients, I felt like I want to do a broader reach. And so that's why I came up that I'm going to start a podcast called Let's Chai and Chat. And it's not going to be therapized. It's not going to be anything of that nature. It's just really just talking about all of these things from a client point of view of, this is normal what you're feeling. This is really, um, you know, it's not, you're not alone. And it's supposed to be very casual, just like this conversation. So, but that's going to be released this fall. And I also have an Instagram of Let's Chai and Chat. So I just want to thank you, everyone. And I'm open to any questions.
Amisha, thank you so much. This is incredible. And I have some questions here from group participants of past trainings and questions from the team. So I'm just going to go ahead and spitball these. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
So one question was, how can I support my client that's having anxiety due to family pressure and pressure from parents? Kind of how do you think about that and how do you approach that?
Yeah, so it, yes, there's going to be a lot of anxiety from the outside, but it's also, how do they cope with anxiety? Do they just shut down? Do they like kind of run away from it? Do they, what are their ways? And and so like when you're feeling that pressure, it's like, how can you control your emotions first? So then the triggers from your family or other expectations, parents' expectations, don't really trigger as much, because understanding yourself and understanding where is this kind of doing IFS body part kind of work, and like, where are you feeling this tension, right? And how does it feel? And why do we need to talk about it? Like, can we like not avoid it or not, but kind of put it off a little bit until the client feels like their anxiety has kind of subsided to be able to have those kinds of conversations.
Mhm. That's awesome. And can you speak a little more about like how you help people that want to have those conversations with their parents about the dynamic in their relationship if they do want anything to change?
Yeah. I mean, it's going to take a few tries. Um, it's not going to be like, okay, mom and dad, I feel this. But it will be like, the thing is building that confidence. Like sometimes because they've never been defiant and they've never spoken up about themselves, the parents may find that their child or their 20-something-year-old is now being defiant and
Yeah.
not listening to them, right? And it's kind of making them understand it's like, it's not that I'm not listening to you. I've listened to you my whole entire life. I'm just realizing for myself that X, Y, and Z is not good for me. I don't think I'll be happy. And when we like, and yeah, it's going to take a lot of conversation. Like one or two conversations are not going to, be okay. But sticking to what you're feeling instead of, okay, fine, I'll do the arranged marriage. Okay, fine. Like, because these are big topics, these are big things in your life where it is involving somebody else. So, you like standing up for yourself in a very courageous manner and not like yelling at them, not saying that they're horrible parents or anything of that nature. It's just really understanding what you want for yourself and letting them know because they won't know until you tell them.
Beautiful. Thank you. Another question that's kind of related was how and why are in-laws so integrated in the married couple's life? It seemed unique, the way the parents and especially in-laws are relating. Can you just share more about that?
Yeah, so it goes back to history in the sense of like um before traditionally it was like in India when the person leaves the family, the woman leaves their home life and goes to their in-laws. It's like that's their daughter now. You don't really come home. You don't really associate with your own nuclear family. And now everything is towards them. And you kind of have to obey everything coming into their life, meaning that you have to cook, you got to clean, you got to do all of that stuff. And that was traditional, like I would say 20, like 30, 40 years ago, 50 years ago. It's changed overall because a lot of women are getting education and working, and there's so many like tech companies in India that, or accountants or wherever, that, more and more people are understanding that women are going to work, but still, it's like it's the hierarchy of where you are in the family. So, of course, it's going to be the father-in-law, then it's going to be the mother-in-law, then it's going to be the son,
Mm,
and then it's going to be like the siblings, and then it's going to be you. So it's very, hierarchical based.
mm. So what are maybe give us an example of when you've worked with a couple where the dynamic with in-laws was a piece of the conversation? Is that something you see a lot that when I know you see couples, so when couples come in, is that
Yeah,
often a topic or
it is. It is a topic, right? It is about like sometimes when like how to navigate with in-laws because it's like the son is put in the middle between the wife and the parents. And sometimes you have to talk to your husband in order to get through to the parents because they will only listen to the husband. But
Mm,
if you can form a nice relationship, because not all in-laws are bad. I don't want to say like give this generic statement that all in-laws are bad. But like, if you have a good relationship with them, then you are able to say some things and they are able to treat you like very well. But then other people is just that dynamic of it's kind of like because the woman is coming into more of a wealthy family. So it's kind of like the whole dowry thing of like, I'm giving my child away to you and now you are the ones. But it's like, but you treat them not so kindly because of, oh, they're poor, they're not this, they don't know anything. they just like they just know how to cook and clean, but even then they're not nice people. Or, it's just that perceived notion that they are better, like the in-laws are better
Hmm.
than the daughter-in-law.
Hmm.
But mind you, it still happens, but it's very rare now than it was about in the 60s, 70s.
Hmm. Yeah, I imagine a ton seems like it's changing with just the workforce changing, with more women working. Family structure is in a really dynamic place for
Yeah,
Asian Americans.
yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely. And it's like what so I see a lot of I would say young adults like under 30, and that's what they're grappling with. It's just the fact of the you have this education your whole entire life, and then the parents ask like, "Okay, are you seeing somebody? Are you dating somebody?" And they're like, "No." And they're like, "Why?" "Well, you told me not to." "Okay, well, let's get you arranged, married, and go." And they're like, "Wait a minute. No, no, no. Like, I want to work. I want to have this." Like, and the reason why it's a very traditional of like getting married under the age of 30 is because of conceiving and having children. You want to have children before 35 because then you don't want to be an old woman having or carrying children in the future, or if you can't get pregnant. Um, so it's the whole tradition and like, okay, you go to school, you work, you get married, buy a house, and you have children, the whole thing. And there's no leeway. I myself, I actually differed from my family. So um, my both of my sisters, they got married, like they have education, got married, have a house, and they had children. But for myself, I have an education, I got married, but I didn't want children. And so but then I got a divorce too. So not having children, divorcing, two double whammies. And then fast forward, I remarried, but now my children are animals. And that's just, not heard of. Even my family will still ask, and I'll be like, I do have children. I have three animals.
Hmm.
So the traditional piece is very, very important to them.
Hmm. Hmm. Awesome. Thank you. Someone had asked, how can I support my client that's wanting to go through an identity change when they are older?
It's interesting because a lot of when a lot of people who go the traditional route of becoming an engineer or a doctor or whatever the case may be, an accountant, they realize that they're only doing it. And it's not everybody, but they're like, it's just like work, 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 right? And there's no passion towards it. It's like they're like missing something from it, from their life, and they're not sure. And so they're realizing that, okay, maybe if I do a career change, maybe if I do something else, like and the way to support them is like, of course, supporting them whatever they want to do, but still incorporating some of their values that they've had. So it's not like they're starting from scratch and their values are not important. It's much more, how can you, with this identity change, what do you want to incorporate from what you've learned? And that's where they can start, and then that can branch out instead of just starting from scratch or not knowing. Like, okay, I want to have an identity change, but I don't know what to do.
Hmm. Well, and I imagine, I mean, tell me, but I'd imagine that feels for your client and then for the family as well, that an identity change might mean a total rejection of the way things have been or the family culture. And so it sounds like you're saying, what are the values that are consistent,
Yep.
underlying, and then, the way that's lived out can maybe there's more flexibility for that to change.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And if somebody incorporates new values into their new identity, that's okay too,
Mhm.
right? And because I think, back in the day, we used to call it like a midlife crisis, right? Like when somebody used to have a midlife crisis, they would just go crazy. And it's just like, okay, wait a minute, let's like hone in. Let's calm down here, and let's start. You can have a midlife crisis, but let's slow it down. And what aspects of identity do you want to change?
Uh-huh.
Is like, and if it's everything, let's start small, right? Because you can't change everything at one time. What can you change in small, small chunks that will allow you in a year's time or however long to have that full identity change of what you're looking for?
Uh-huh. Well, so tell me, in your experience of working with especially young adults that are coming in, maybe wanting, I guess any age, but people that are saying,
Hmm.
I want something different than what
Hmm.
we've had. The value of interdependence, and that
Hmm.
communal and that, the essence of family. Are you finding that tends to be a through line that people want to continue, like, continue to feel interdependent while also making these changes, or is that value changing? What are you noticing there?
Absolutely, absolutely. A lot of the like young adults, they're like, I want to do something different. And my parents are freaking out because they're like, figure out something to do. And it is a harder conversation to have with your parents versus if you're married and in your 40s, they don't really care. They're like, all right, do whatever you want to do.
Hmm.
But when you're not married and you go through this, it's just like, you need to figure it out because you need to get married. And
Hmm.
what about everything that we've taught you? And it's kind of like this disappointment for the parents. Like, why are you doing things that are different?
Hmm.
Even in the sense of like, I have a client that traditionally in their family line, it's all arranged, even to this day. And the client has chosen to find somebody instead. And it's been a stressor for the parents. And even they're like, what do I tell the grandparents? What do I tell your grandparents,
Yeah.
So and then alone, you're not working at Amazon, you're not working at Meta. Like, what are you gonna be doing? How are you gonna survive?
Hmm.
And it's like, um, because doing theater or doing, research or doing whatever is not going to make you money because it also comes down to the financial aspect. How are you going to support yourself?
Uh-huh.
You know? And so the client or the individual is trying to like decipher, like, because I followed your stuff for the whole entire life. Now I want to do something different. And I can, right? Why don't you have faith in me? Why don't you have trust in me? Why
Yeah.
don't you like I've done everything. So it is a battle, that families have because um it's like how do you go about doing independence but still maintaining that
Yeah.
relationship,
Right.
right? And
Hmm.
it's also how like so then you build the person's confidence level,
Hmm.
right? Because they've always been dependent on their family.
Hmm.
So it's kind of like building baby steps of confidence for themselves.
Mm-hmm. Well, it seems like something for especially, white therapists to be looking out for is our
Mhm.
own biases here around the value of independence over the value of the interdependence and really
Mhm.
being aware there.
Yeah,
Do you notice anything that, therapists really miss in that when they come in from kind of these class, our field in general, really
right.
valuing this independence. Do you see that we miss that a lot as a field?
Absolutely. I mean, honestly, I'm not sure when you like, when you're in school, like there was only like maybe like a section, a
Okay.
paragraph of how to handle anybody outside of the Western culture,
Uh-huh.
you know?
Uh-huh.
And so a lot of therapists, not from their fault, it's just that they're just doing what they're taught, in the sense of, well, you're supposed to have individualism. You live in America, your freedom, right? It's democracy. But then clients get afraid because it's just like, well, it's never been like that. I know I live in US, but like I live under my parents' roof, or, my parents pay for my college, or whatever the case may be. And so it's really like I would advise therapists to being curious, stay curious. I know everybody has judgment and whatnot, but keep that in judgment inside versus or keep that for consultation or supervision. But like being curious, I don't think any client is going to mind if you ask questions, understanding their dynamic, because we want to live in their shoes, right? What are they going through? Versus, okay, my judgment is that you need to leave the house and kind of do whatever you want to,
Uh-huh.
right?
Uh-huh.
Even though that's the end goal, we got to figure out how to do that in a way that is right for you know.
Mhm. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Um, uh, Kind of one last question here. Someone had, what are some ways that I can connect with my client knowing I don't have extensive knowledge of South Asian culture? And, maybe you kind of were answering that in the way you just were talking about curiosity, but what else would you say about that? Someone that comes in, with less awareness of the nuance, even of, the regions, maybe specifically.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. Um, I think outside of being curious, it's okay to ask questions, but I think also like doing consultation with other South Asian therapists, myself, other people in the community, um, and really like, reading about it, like if, because there's a lot of stuff that's been happening in the news lately, and understanding like, okay, this is like taking us, I'm sure there's a credit or course or something or another about this dynamic. Actually, in a couple weeks, there is like some MFTs are hosting uh another training about how to handle sex in the South Asian community.
Oh, awesome.
And so I can send that link as well, but it's like a different like so just learning,
Yeah.
understanding from a therapist's perspective, and not just jumping to assumptions,
Yeah.
And that's just about any culture too. So
Yeah. Well, and like you mentioned with the specific training around sex within the South Asian community, there's every level of nuance that could be, leaned into, whether it's values and independence and or communal, culture and then relationships, what trust is like you mentioned, what empathy is like, what boundaries are like, what
yeah,
intimacy is like. There could
yeah,
be curiosity around any of these. Big time.
absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah. And like it's not one size fits all, right? Even if you have a training and, asking the client, like, okay, well, how do you view intimacy? What does intimacy look for you? Have you tried it? Because when we talk about intimacy as a topic, it just means like, okay, it's sex. But there's more to intimacy than just sex, Like how does the person greet you? How is that warmth of that person? How do you feel? Do you want to be like, do you miss them when they go on business trips, or do you want to, or not, So it's a lot more asking questions, and the client will be okay with it. And because it'll allow them to think too. It's not the fact that they're teaching the therapist, it'll allow them to think like, oh, okay, like slow them down too in this nuance that
Mhm.
they're going through. So it's a learning and building that trust and relationship both ways.
Lovely. Well, Amisha, thank you so much for this. I guess another way people can learn is to listen to your podcast.
Yes.
So everyone go listen to that. And is that coming out? Do you have a date where
I think I'm shooting for October 8th.
okay.
So yeah, I'm crafting my work, and we'll see what I brew this summer. So
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for this. I know, again, huge topic, and you're helping us dive in and really start to get more curious and understand, some of the stigma around therapy that we maybe don't understand, some of the values that are really helpful to keep in mind. As you guys know, Amisha sees couples and teens and individuals. And I know, Amisha, you're open to consult with folks. Actually, talked to
mhm.
someone today that consulted with you recently about a South Asian client. So thank you so much for being a resource.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime. I have no hesitation. So I rather you ask than not ask.
Yeah.
So
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Bye.